Hey there, it's Brian Mounts again. I run topoffmycoffee.com and this channel, and today I've been fiddling around with my Keurig K-Select for a while this morning, taking temperatures of various things and working with the hidden settings. If you have a Keurig K-Select or you're thinking about getting one, there are basically 2 or 3 hidden settings in it. They are publicized in the Keurig user guide, but they're still kind of hidden. There's a lot of misinformation about them. It's hard to figure out how to use them because even though they mention them in the guide, they don't really say exactly how to do it clearly. The 2 or 3 hidden settings, depending on how you define them, is you can change the brew temperature of this device. You can set a high altitude setting with this device, and you can disable the auto off function on this device. Let me show you. Let's start with the auto off function because that's the simplest one to understand. When you turn the machine on, here, let me turn it off. When you turn your Keurig K-Select on, the whole machine starts warming up the internal tank, getting it ready to brew a cup of coffee. And this light comes on. It says auto off. There doesn't seem to be any way of turning that light off, but there is. What this light does, what this setting does, is that if I don't brew anything in this coffee maker for the next 2 hours, the whole thing will turn off all by itself, like you would expect. Most coffee makers do that. If you use a drip coffee maker, you're used to the concept of brewing and then the hot plate stays on for 2 hours and everything turns off all by itself. With the Keurig machines, the internal tank will keep that water hot for 2 hours after you turn it on, or it will keep it on. It will keep the internal tank hot for 2 hours after you brew your last cup of coffee. If you want to disable this setting, you can do that. The way that you disable the auto off button is from the off position. With it off, if you press the strong and 10-ounce buttons at the same time for about 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and then let go, then you turn it on, now the auto off button is off. From this state, this coffee maker is going to warm up the internal tank, get it up to temperature, and then it's going to stay hot until I turn the machine off. Now, to put it back to the auto off, you do the exact same thing again. You turn it off, press and hold the 10-ounce button and strong button, 1, 2, 3. Now when we turn it on, the auto off function is back on. Now, in my opinion, that's kind of cool, and I could see some uses for that. But the high altitude setting and the temperature control setting, those are the 2 things that I think are more functional, and they're going to be more useful for most people. So let's go into that. The reason I say that these are 2 different functions, even though they're basically the same function, is because people define them differently. In some of the modern machines, Keurig offers you temperature control. The most notable modern machine is the K-Supreme Plus. They literally give you a button for temperature 1, 2, and 3, or low, medium, high, or however you want to define those things. Additionally, over here, I've got the K-Elite. Over here in the settings, you can actually choose your temperature to the degree between 187 and 192. But with the K-Select, there's no obvious way to change the setting, but there actually is. If you press the strong and 8 button from the off position at the same time for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, now they're blinking. That means the high altitude setting has been enabled, and by enabling the high altitude setting, the brew temperature has just dropped about 5 degrees. Now, earlier today, I did a lot of brew cycles on both settings, trying to measure exactly what is happening when you enable or disable that function. Now, from a preheated mug and a preheated internal water reservoir or water heating tank, I was able to achieve in the mug hot water of 179 degrees. But when I enabled the high altitude setting, the maximum temperature that I could ever get into my mug was 174 degrees. That's a 5-degree difference that is in line with what is clearly shown on the display of the Keurig K Elite. When you enable the high altitude setting on that, effectively you are decreasing the brew temperature by 5 degrees. Now, in prior videos about the K-Select, I have said that you can change the high altitude setting. There's no obvious way to know whether the setting is on or off, and I still agree with that statement, but there is a not obvious way. If you press and hold those buttons from the off position and then they go off, then that means the high altitude setting has been disabled. If you press and hold them for 3 seconds again and they start blinking, then that means you have enabled the high altitude setting. So whether you define your temperature control as I just like coffee brewed at a lower temperature, or you define it as I live at a high altitude and I need that temperature to be lower, this machine offers the ability to switch that back and forth. It's very easy to do, and once you understand the light blinking process, once you understand which buttons to push for how long, it becomes pretty easy to toggle these things on and off. It would be nice if there was a display there that could show you whether they've been toggled or not. Maybe even just a tiny little light like we get with the auto off function. But we don't get that with the K-Select. You got to pay a little bit more money and buy the K Elite or one of the K Supremes to get that. But again, I've said that the K-Select I think is a better value than the K Elite. I don't think I would buy the K-Select over the K Supreme or the K Supreme Plus. But I think this is a great coffee maker. These hidden functions are there and they're easy to use. It's just hard to understand how to use them. Until I made this video, of course. Anyway, if you have the K-Select, if you've used these things, I'd love to know. Drop some comments down below and let us know what you use them for and why you use them and how you use them. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. I'm going to try to provide helpful information, helpful videos, interesting videos like this as much as I can. Hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified, usually, whenever they come out. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Alright, I just finished filming that whole thing, but then I realized, I didn't actually define what high altitude is. Keurig, in their materials, some of their materials say 4,000 feet. I've seen some references to 5,000 feet elevation, some references to 6,000 feet elevation. All of those are pretty high elevation. Most of the country is below 4,000 feet. I live at 4,200 feet above sea level, and here, let me show you. When you get this high over sea level and you look at a K-Cup, you can see that the top kind of fluffs up, it kind of balloons up. And that's because of the change in pressure. As you get higher, the internal pressure in the K-Cup wants it to balloon out. So what I end up doing is pre-puncturing these K-Cups myself by hand. Basically, I put it in there and I squeeze it in so that the lower hole is punctured before I close the lid. That kind of releases the pressure and it allows the grind to not explode out of the top when the pressure releases if the machine is doing it itself. But that goes to show you, at only 4,000 feet, I'm already getting pressure inside the K-Cups. And, quite honestly, the boiling point of water is dropping already. I think 212 is the boiling point down at sea level. And at 4,000 feet, it's somewhere around 204. I think it's roughly 2 degrees for every 1,000 feet. Of course, the higher you go, the more dramatic that gets. I don't think that these machines really are in danger of boiling your water at 190 degrees. I mean, nobody's brewing a Keurig up at 15,000 feet. There's certainly not very many people up there. But you certainly do deal with this at higher elevations. And some people just like their coffee being brewed at lower temperatures. So these machines give you that function. Anyway, that's just a little bit of extra material for this video. Thank you very much for watching.